No matter what he tries, Russian President Vladimir Putin can't seem to score a win in Ukraine. His enemy seems to have all of the answers: tanks, air power, and artillery. All are falling in record numbers to Ukraine's clever counterattacks and assaults. What does all of this mean? Putin's forces are getting wrecked in the skies and field as Ukraine strikes again and again. Russia is getting crushed as Ukraine shreds its jets, tanks and artillery, with 4 recent incidents showcasing something that Putin is quickly being forced to learn: Ukraine has Russia's number. The first example of Ukraine's tactical genius comes from May 14 in the small city of Pokrovsk. That city has been a Putin target since at least the midpoint of 2024, not least because it holds massive strategic importance for Ukraine and Russia. Right now, Pokrovsk is one of Ukraine's most vital strongholds on the Eastern Front. It's a logistical hub connecting several of Ukraine's other defensive positions thanks to roads that run through and encircle the city. It's also dangerously close to the Ukrainian rear, which is why Putin wants the city so badly. If Russia can take Pokrovsk, it would solidify their control within the Donetsk region. Ukraine has to stop that from happening. So that leads to May 14 and the latest attempt by Putin's forces to take this vital city in what amounted to yet another Russian tactical failure. It appeared that Putin simply won't learn his lesson. No matter how many times Ukraine succeeds in funneling his army's mechanized units into kill zones before obliterating those units, Putin keeps on making the same mistake. That's what happened in Pokrovsk. Russia began its failed assault by assembling a mechanized column in the town of Rovdivka. The goal was simple: launch a mechanized assault, allowing Russia to establish a foothold in Mirnorad. Russia even had a route into the town. A 3.1-mile stretch of paved asphalt road connected the two settlements. All Russia had to do was send its tanks and BMP fighting vehicles hurtling along that road, and it would be able to dismount the Ukrainian defenders in Mirnorad. With that settlement captured, Russia would be one step closer to initiating a full-blown assault against Pokrovsk. A simple plan then, and perhaps that was Russia's problem. What Putin's forces failed to account for was the industrial zone built around a coal mine in the southern region of Mirnorad. That zone includes several high-rise buildings along with mineshaft elevators that offer Ukraine plenty of fortified concrete observation points overlooking the rest of the city. Perfect for organizing a counterattack against invading Russian forces. Ukraine had eyes on Russia's mechanized column from the moment the column left its staging area. Reinforcing that observational advantage were a pair of strongholds in Mirnorad, built in 2015, along with bunkers, trenches and dugouts Ukraine built alongside the road that linked Mirnorad to Rovdivka. Even the novice military observer would be able to know that any mechanized column attempting to travel this route would face such heavy fire that it would be obliterated. Putin's forces didn't understand this basic concept. Compounding the clear defensive threat Ukraine created between Mirnorad and Rovdivka were anti-tank mines scattered across the road Russia intended to take, along with anti-tank guided missile or ATGM positions that could direct fire onto Russia's tanks. All of this should have sent a clear message to Putin's forces to avoid the road connecting Mirnorad and Rovdivka. Bypass it, circumvent it, do anything but drive your tanks and armoured vehicles along that road. To its credit, Russia was smart enough to at least consider doing just that. But Ukraine had anticipated this problem. The fields surrounding the road into Mirnorad were laced with a complex network of dragon's teeth defences and anti-tank ditches. Russia's tanks would never make it through the field. They'd be stopped in their tracks, becoming easy fodder for Ukraine's ATGM and its first-person view FPV drones. So Russia would have to take the road. There would be no hurtling. Thanks to Ukraine's defences, any Russian progress had to be slow. Anti-tank mines needed to be deactivated every step of the way, all as Ukraine watched on from Mirnorad industrial zone. Russia was heading right into a trap, one that Ukraine triggered with deadly efficiency. The Lowdown blog says that geolocated footage from the area reveals that the Russian mechanized column consisted of a tank and 2 BMP vehicles. As soon as those units left Rovdivka, they exposed themselves on the road. The tank was equipped with a mine roller, forcing the column to move slowly. Ukraine could have simply watched and waited for the three vehicles to come into range of its ATGM fire. But why do that when you have FPV drones? As the Russian vehicles attempted to clear a path along the road, Ukraine's drone operators launched their assault. Within minutes, drones were buzzing around the three Russian vehicles, launching kamikaze attacks against their engines. The Russian column was stopped in its tracks just a few feet outside of its staging area. The result? Pure panic among the Russian soldiers. Figuring out that they weren't going to get anywhere with their wrecked vehicles, the soldiers departed on foot and tried to run toward Mirnorad. That was a mistake. More Ukrainian FPV drones swarmed the area, picking off Russians left and right. The few that survived retreated to the Russian rear, leaving their vehicles damaged and abandoned on the road. Ukraine decided to finish those vehicles off. More drones followed, carrying incendiary grenades that they dropped into the abandoned vehicles. Explosions followed, and Russia managed to achieve precisely nothing from its failed attempt on Mirnorad. In a matter of minutes, one tank, two armored vehicles, and several Russian soldiers were destroyed by Ukraine's defenses. Just one more tactical failure to add to the multitude that Putin has led since he invaded Ukraine. In addition to that pathetic attempt at an attack against Ukraine's strong fortifications, there's also Ukraine's recent taking out a Russian jet. On May 12, Ukraine's 58th Separate Motorized Infantry Brigade released direct footage of one of its soldiers decimating a Russian Su-25 jet with a shoulder-fire surface-to-air or SAM missile. That soldier, known only by the call sign of Talib, has a long history with Russian fighter jets. He'd taken out 3 of them before, though it's the Su-25 that marks his most important kill to date. Why? The video footage shows that Russia was attempting to use the jet to strike a Ukrainian position, likely to open it up to a later ground assault. The footage starts with a first-person view of the Igla 9K38 the soldier is carrying pointed toward a clear sky. Then he fires. The Igla SAM missile launches out of its barrel and hurtles towards the sky as the soldier runs into cover behind some trees. Not much is seen from there, however the results become clear. An explosion is heard in the distance, signifying a direct hit on the Russian fighter jet. The footage ends with a simple message from Talib.
Welcome to Ukraine!
Welcome to Ukraine. Talib's brigade followed up when reporting on the amazing strike, noting that he hates it when any of that trash flies over his ground, and he's a formidable hunter. Stay tuned for more. The threat is clear. Talib alone has taken out 4 of Russia's fighter jets. If Putin sends any more in his brigade's direction, he'll take them out too. So, just what did Talib achieve with his Su-25 strike? For one thing, it just cost Putin $11 million in military hardware that's now a smouldering wreckage somewhere on the ground in Ukraine, and he did it using a SAM rocket that costs far less than the aircraft it took down. The Su-25 is one of Russia's most important assets in the Ukraine war, despite being a fighter jet that dates back to the Soviet era. The first 11 of the aircraft entered service in April 1981, with Russia developing hundreds more since, along with instituting an upgrade program at the turn of the millennium to make the jets more effective. Putin has been using these jets to carry out isolated strikes against Ukrainian defensive positions. They're certainly designed for that purpose. Each Su-25 carries a 30mm gun capable of firing 3,000 rounds per minute, along with 250 rounds of ammunition. More worryingly for Ukraine, the jet comes loaded with 10 external hardpoints that can be equipped with a wide range of weaponry, making the Su-25 a multi-role fighter. Amongst those weapons are several types of air-to-surface missiles, including the KH-23, KH-25ML, and KH-29I. A Su-25 can also carry up to 8 1,102-pound bombs, up to 8 rocket pods, and even gun pods mounted to its external hardpoints. It all depends on the specific mission to which the jet is deployed. Regardless of the specific loadout, it's clear that the Su-25 Ukraine just took out was a threat to its ground forces. A threat that Talib neutralized in seconds. It's also worth honing in on the weapon Talib used to get the job done. The Igla 9K38 is a Russian-made surface-to-air missile defense system that's portable and can be carried via a soldier's shoulder. Like the Su-25, it's a product of the 1980s, with its key role being to use infrared homing missiles to take out fighter jets like the one Talib just destroyed. Even now, over 40 years after its introduction into the Russian military, the Igla 9K38 is an impressive piece of kit. It fires the 9M39 missile, which uses an infrared guidance system that homes in on a target. That guidance system is protected against electro-optical hammers, though it had a surprisingly low kill rate. Against an unprotected fighter jet, the 9M39 offers a kill probability of between 30 and 48%. That cast a new light on what Talib managed to achieve on May 12. He now has 4 fighter jet kills under his belt, all of which are likely to have been achieved using the Igla 9K38. With each shot, he has less than a 50-50 chance of taking out a fighter jet, yet he scored 4 direct hits, demonstrating that his 40-plus-year-old Soviet weapon is lethal when it's in the hands of somebody who knows how to use it. So, what's been observed so far? In Pokrovsk, Putin once again showcased his tactical ineptitude, or at least that of his military commanders, by sending valuable armoured vehicles into a blatant kill zone. Russia's tanks and BMPs didn't stand a chance. Putin should have known that, but he sent them anyway, and just 2 days before that remarkable failure, he'd also been forced to watch as Ukraine downed one of his Su-25s using a weapon that Russia itself designed. Again, Ukrainian tactical nous and superior weapons use led to a humiliating Russian asset loss. And there's more, much more. Next, there's what went down at an undisclosed location believed to be either Belgorod or Kursk. Both are Russian border oblasts that are cleared targets for Ukraine, with the latter even having been subjected to a Ukrainian counter-invasion back in August 2024. In footage released by the Ukrainian military on May 9, a reconnaissance drone is seen flying above a large tree line. Nestled within that tree line sits one of Russia's most advanced weapons, a 2S-43 Malva self-propelled howitzer. The Malva is one of the newest weapons Putin deploys in Ukraine. It entered service in 2023 and exists to enhance the Russian military's artillery capabilities. It's massive, mobile, and packs a very heavy punch. The Malva is 32 tons of Russian engineering that's crewed by 5 people and is capable of rattling off up to 7 explosive artillery rounds per minute. Those rounds have effective ranges spanning between 15.2 and 31 miles, depending on the ammunition used. The weapon is also loaded onto an 8x8 wheeled chassis that allows it to reach a top speed of 49.7 miles per hour, allowing Russia to quickly transport it to wherever the Malva needs to go to present the greatest possible threat against Ukraine. The Malva Ukraine spotted near Belgorod or Kursk needed to be taken out. To handle the Malva problem, Ukraine used a weapon that it has mastered during its fight against Russia, an FPV drone. The 35 seconds of footage shared by Ukraine's military appears to be shot by a reconnaissance drone that spots the Russian Malva hiding within several trees. The drone starts to explore, shooting footage of Russia's artillery superweapon from multiple angles. At one point, the footage flips to the perspective of an FPV drone as it flies right up to the Malva's rear for a close-up view, suggesting that whoever was supposed to be crewing the weapon has either abandoned it or is stationed so far away that they don't know that the Ukrainian drone is present. Whatever the case may be, leaving the Malva undefended was a critical mistake. The FPV drone draws closer and closer, eventually hitting the Malva as its video feed dies. The footage then switches back to the reconnaissance drone's viewpoint, where the outcome of the FPV drone is seen hitting the Malva. Russia's supermodern artillery unit explodes in a cascade of fire, smoke and sparks. And just like that, Russia lost another valuable piece of hardware. It's not clear precisely how much Russia spends on these units, but it can be safely assumed that it's in the region of millions of dollars simply because of how new the Malva is. Along with the howitzer being destroyed, it's likely that Ukraine also managed to take out some artillery shells that can no longer be used to assault its troops as they conduct more attacks in the Russian border regions. And if all that wasn't enough, there's another example of how Ukraine is taking out Russian aircraft. On May 13, the Ukrainian military released footage of it destroying a Russian Tu-22M3 strategic bomber. That footage was actually shot way back in April 2024, though it's only just been released to the public. And it turns out to be another example of Ukraine taking out a key Russian asset. The Tu-22M3 is believed to cost at least $100 million and may cost as much as $300 million, making the destruction of just one of the bombers a massive hit for Putin's invasion. Beyond its cost, the Tu-22M3 is also a valuable asset from a strategic perspective. Dubbed blinder by NATO, the original Tu-22 entered service into the Soviet military during the 1960s. However, that version was replaced in the 1980s by the Tu-22M3, which saw its first combat engagements during Russia's war with Afghanistan. The aircraft is a long-range bomber capable of destroying both marine and ground-based targets, with a particular focus on aircraft carriers. Some have even dubbed it the carrier killer because each Tu-22M3 carries a trio of supersonic Kh-22M missiles that are designed specifically to devastate large naval targets. Russia hasn't been using the bomber for that purpose against Ukraine. However, that doesn't mean the aircraft's missiles aren't dangerous. The Kh-22M is also capable of hitting ground targets, as is the Tu-22M3's bomb loadout. The plane can carry either 69 Fab 250 bombs, each weighing 250 pounds, or 8 of Russia's 1,500 pound Fab 1500 bombs. If these Fab bombs sound familiar, it's because they're the dumb bombs Russia has been converting into the devastating glide bombs it's using to devastate Ukraine's cities and fortifications. Therein lies the danger that the Tu-22M3 poses. Though the aircraft has a range of 1,497 miles, which theoretically means it could fly to practically any location in Ukraine, Russia has used these bombers to launch glide bombs from behind the front lines. The footage Ukraine released in May showcases how it's dealing with these devastating bombers. And here's the worst part for Putin. Ukraine achieved its remarkable feat using the S-200, which is an ancient weapon developed during the 1960s that Ukraine has somehow managed to turn into a Russian aircraft killer. In the released footage, the Spartan S-200 is seen being prepared. The S-200 is locked and loaded, with multiple crew members getting it ready for launch. That alone is a risk. If Russia had caught Ukraine soldiers preparing the air defense unit manually, it could have easily taken them out. But it didn't, and Russia soon regretted missing the S-200. The S-200 is seen elevating its missile into a firing position, then liftoff. The missile goes hurtling into the sky, and then nothing more. Euromaidan press reveals that the S-200 missile travelled a startling 191 miles, eventually touching down on a Russian airbase where the missile devastated a stationary Tu-22M3. The same outlet provides more details about Ukraine's success. It says that Ukrainian intelligence operatives had waited for over a week to prepare their S-200 ambush. The risk they took on was staggering, given the air defense system's manual loading requirements. Ukraine also updated the missile system, with one analyst being quoted as stating, "Externally, the missile hasn't changed, but the modernization has focused on its electronic systems." Perhaps it was that modernization that prevented Russia from detecting the ancient S-200 missile as it hurtled toward one of its air bases. At this point, it doesn't really matter. Yet another Russian asset went up in smoke thanks to Ukraine's military ingenuity. That's the through line for all four of these brilliant Ukrainian successes. In Pokrovsk, Ukraine used superior tactics to shuttle Russia's tanks and armoured vehicles into a kill zone. Taking out the Su-25 involved a single talented and experienced operative using a SAM launcher to great effect. Russia's modern howitzer fell victim to Ukraine's clever use of FPV drones, and with the Tu-22M3 destruction, Ukraine somehow transformed an ancient aerial defense system into one capable of taking out a massive threat. But what do you think about what Ukraine achieved with these four attacks? What do they show us about the contrast between Ukraine's approach to the war and what Putin is attempting to do? Are there any other Ukrainian strikes you can think of that are worth highlighting? Share your opinions with us in the comments, and remember to subscribe to the Military Show for more videos covering the latest tactics Ukraine is using to damage the Russian military, as well as other ongoing conflicts around the world.